Yes. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another sourcing webinar of Matcher. And I'm incredibly proud and pleased today to introduce Shally Steckerl today, who's going to show us some true sourcing magic. I'm Adrian Kolf. I am the co-founder and CEO of Matcher, and I have the honor and the pleasure to introduce our guests. And today is Shally. A little bit more about Shally. Shally's been in the industry since 1996. I cannot believe it, Shally, but it's actually true. Shally, I almost dare to say, known as the godfather of sourcing. He has wrote multiple books. Now wrote his third book. Is that correct, right, Shally? Your third book is now out.
The sourcing method. That's right. Yeah. It's the sourcing method. Yeah.
The sourcing method. Shally's worked for numerous Fortune 500 companies. Has helped tons and tons of recruiters with sourcing. Basically, is the one that basically built this industry and actually gave it a name in that sense. And if we almost have to take Shally a little bit down in terms of where he's at versus where the rest of the world is at in that sense to make him understand what he's doing. I don't know if anyone has ever seen any of the dashboards that Shally has built, but it's absolutely incredible in that sense. So when we decided to launch our sourcing webinars again, the first one I reached out to was Shally to ask him if he wanted to share some of his knowledge today with us. And he did. He immediately said yes. So I'm super happy and pleased for Shally to be here today. And Shally is going to use multiple screens to show us, in real life what he can automate using Power BI. And I will be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, if Shally goes too fast, if you want to repeat something, just post it in the chat, and I will interrupt Shally abruptly and ask him to stop or answer your question. So keep the chat lively. If you have any questions, please do so, or I'll collect them at the end of our chat. Guys, excited to start. Shally, all the best, and you can start sharing your screen.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you for the introduction. How much time do we have together today?
Yeah, so we have 55 minutes.
55 minutes, counting down. Okay, I started my atomic clock now.
Exactly.
And folks, if you have any questions, I am going to be switching back and forth between the application that I'm going to show. You may not be able to see it in the chat. Please, by all means, go ahead and engage with Adrian, and he will interrupt me. I've told him it's okay. He's not being rude. I actually asked him for that help because I don't know if I'm going to miss your chat, and you're very important to me, so I don't want to miss it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and put the PowerPoint slide in front of you here. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time in PowerPoint. I just want to talk a little bit about Power Automate Desktop. So the story begins with Microsoft Flow, which is a cloud-based automation platform that comes with Office 365, now Microsoft 365. And I started using this back at Fiserv to create forms and automate approvals and kinds of back office technologies. It was a really useful tool, but it only worked in Microsoft 365 on the cloud. Now, there were a lot of different things that plugged into it, but it had limitations because everything had to be cloud-based. So later on, when Microsoft created a desktop version called Power Automate Desktop, they changed the name from Microsoft Flow to Microsoft Automate and created this Power Automate Desktop. I started using that, and I was just completely enamored. I fell in love with it. It's been since then, I've been doing a lot of things with it and experimenting with it. Recently, my good friend for many years, Glenn Guttmacher, who's on the chat there as well, say hi, Glenn. He and I have been collaborating on some ideas. We talk about in the sourcing method on Fridays. It's free to join and come watch, so you're welcome to do that. The reason that I got so excited about it is because with the desktop version, now you can automate not just the cloud applications and cloud services, but also desktop applications and desktop interface. This is significant because a lot of times what we do does depend on our desktop, our laptop. Now, if you're a Mac user, don't worry. There's Auto the Automator. They've had this for a very long time. You can automate a lot of things on the Mac. So what I'm showing you here can be done there. But what I was so excited about is that in a Windows environment, I could now do combination cloud and desktop-based automation. That was really, really powerful. So what is this? Think of it like macros. If you remember macros from maybe when you started doing things with Excel, or if you've heard of macros, you might think, oh, macros are too complicated. Who has time for that? Well, they get pretty complicated, and sometimes you need to have a little bit of coding skill. But what Microsoft has done is given us the ability to have no code macros. So it's like programming without programming. It's programming by selecting things, choosing things on the screen. You can record your actions on either a desktop or a website and have the machine play those actions back when you asked it, or on a time basis, or based on triggers. Very, very powerful. So if you used to use maybe if this, then that, to combine, when you do this on Facebook, also do this on LinkedIn, that kind of thing, think of Power Automate Desktop like that, but for multiple actions and just about anything that your imagination can create. So I have a lot of different things that I've been using this, but let me give you a few ideas. You can organize your documents. You can use actions to rename them, to sort them, to convert them from Word to PDF or vice versa. Put them in a folder, extract text, send the text to cognitive analysis like sentiment and tone analysis. For you in different countries, you can actually use their cognitive automation to translate. You can scrape the information from a page or a resume, or when you get an email, and have it detect the language and convert it to your preferred language. All of this can be done for free using these applications. And before you think, oh, it's Microsoft, everything's going to be Microsoft, that's actually not the case. I'll show you. You can do Google and IBM cognitive automation, and basically any application that's on your computer. Doesn't matter if it's Microsoft or not. The only thing that is dependent on Microsoft is that Power Automate Desktop works on Windows computers, not on Macs. Once again, you have Auto the Automator for that, so not a problem. You can also, number two, extract data from websites. You can extract it and store it in another website, another page, an Excel file. I'm going to show you how to do that today. But have you ever thought maybe, oh, I have a CRM and I have an ATS, or I have LinkedIn and I have a CRM. How do I get my information from here to here without having to export, save, convert, upload, or without having to do copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste? This is what you can do. You can actually use these robots to copy and paste behind the scenes for you, from CRM to ATS, from LinkedIn to CRM to ATS to your HRIS, whatever. Store it in Excel, add it to your calendar, send an email. All of that can be automated. And the third thing is you can basically create an autopilot that does things on your desktop during certain times, or is triggered based on other activities. So for example, when I open this, also open that and do this. So it's like if this, then that, but for everything that you can do on your desktop. To download it, this is free. Right now, you can download it on that link there, which we'll provide in the links later. Or you can just look for Microsoft Power Automate Desktop and get the download link. In the future, this is going to be part of Windows. So when you buy a Windows computer, or when you install Windows on your machine, it will be part of the operating system, similar to like browsers like Edge, for example, which is the newer browser. But you can download it now, free to download, free to use. There's nothing paid in it, except for some applications that belong to another company. So if like a company like maybe Salesforce creates an application for this Power Automate Desktop, or PAD as I like to call it, then you have to be a member of that, or you have to pay for that. But everything that comes with about 400 applications are free. The next link that you see there is a link for setup, which is how you're going to configure a few things. The biggest important thing there, most important thing, is that you have to have an environment, which means essentially a Windows account. You can use your Hotmail, or if you have Office, you can use Microsoft 365. You have your business Exchange or Outlook, you can use any of those. As long as you have a Microsoft ID, then you set it up. The reason for that is when you create flows or automations and you save them, you are then able to carry them from one machine to another or from one environment to another. You can share them with other people in your company, or you can share them with different machines that you own. So that's why you have to have an environment, and things get saved to that dataverse or that environment. The next link is some ideas on things that you can do to start creating flows. And the last one, very important, for you to use the web automations, you have to install an extension for whatever browser you choose. There's a Chrome extension, Edge, Firefox, and Explorer. If it's a Chromium-based, like Opera, for example, you can still use the Chrome extension. So install that, and then once you have that extension on your browser, now you're good to go. You can start launching it. Remember I said you can record things from the web and your desktop? Well, I'm going to show you a combination of that today in a couple of different ways. But that's really the power of this, is being able to automate not just cloud-based services. There are at least 400, at last count, I think 460 connectors. A connector is like an app. It's an action or an activity that you can use. I'll show you what it looks like in a minute. But here's the link to get all of the connectors. Actually, most of them are preloaded, but here you can see what they are. And in this page, you can read the descriptions. That way, you know, because when you open the app, it just has the connector. It doesn't tell you an explanation of what it is. So this is where you can learn about that. And finally, here's just some ideas. You can automate email responses. I have a campaign, for example, that sends out a sequence of emails up to 7 times, depending on whether or not the person responded. And at the bottom, I have a little code that's just a reference ID, REF, and then a series number. And I have that number embedded into a flow. So when somebody replies to that email, it triggers a certain action. For example, it might forward the email, it might reply, it might save it somewhere or track it somewhere. And that way I can take advantage of my Outlook email or Gmail as well, and connect that message with a bunch of other actions. You can automatically insert text, find and replace, manipulate lists and text. For example, if you want to create search strings, you can take a list, grab the text, put quotation marks on it, parentheses on it, and send it somewhere to go search. You can scrape data, just like with a lot of web scrapers. Now, there's some free and easy web scrapers that work really well for a page that has some easy to grab text. But when you have multiple pages, like I'm going to show you, this is a really good tool. Reformat files, extract from Excel and put into Word, extract from lists and put into Excel. You can fill out forms. Let's say that every time you submit a candidate, you have to answer certain questions on a form. And the questions are always the same. You have to put in your ID, your customer number, your, the different requirements that your clients have for you to fill out. All of that can be completed with a single automation. So every time you have to add a candidate to the database, it pre-fills all of the fields that are pre-fillable, waits for you to fill the ones that are not, and then continues and submits the process. So it's really, truly automation. You can scan all the resumes that are on a drive, like your SharePoint or an Outlook, and send them to cognitive processing to see if you can identify patterns, for example. So you can do phrase recognition. You can even extract social media interactions from your Facebook or whatever and put them into a CRM. Find the person's ID in your CRM and then attach the messages into your CRM. All of these are good ideas that you can use. So now that I've done a good job of selling you this free tool, and hopefully you've already bought it and downloaded it and started using it, let me show you a couple of things that I do with it.
Shally, sorry. Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Shally, is this very similar to Zapier and Integromat in that sense, in terms of the connections that they make?
Only, sort of, only because Zapier and Integromat have the cloud-based. So Two things. Zapier and Integromat are very powerful, but they're only cloud-based and they're not free. This is just as powerful, but it's more than that because it can do desktop automation as well. Yeah. So everything cloud plus everything on your machine, and it's completely free.
Wow. Okay.
As long as there's a way to do it. So it's like a robot doing what you normally would do. Yeah.
And Shally, maybe you're going to say, but is it also possible that you get the messages that you have in LinkedIn?
Yes.
Connected to a person in your ATS?
Anything that is on a web page that you can identify a pattern, you can automate, copy, store, paste, whatever you want. Anything. Absolutely anything.
Well, all right.
If it's on a web page and on your computer or both or one or the other, and you can read it with your browser, then your machine can actually replicate the same thing you would do. Imagine, think about this. If there's something that you do repetitively, the same thing over and over, like right-click, copy, paste, like that, a machine can do that for you. You don't have to do it yourself. You can program the machine to do it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to start with probably what I think is the most sophisticated example, just so that I can show you the powerful nature of this. And then I'm going to go back and show you two other examples that are a little bit more faster and easier to create. Now, I don't want to confuse you. This example I'm going to show you, I created it with Glenn, and it is easy to create, but it is a little bit more complicated than the other ones. So I want to start by showing you something really impressive, and then I'll show you a couple of other things. Here, you see a Bing LinkedIn scrape with user input. What happened was Glenn and I were trying to solve how to extract LinkedIn profiles from a Google search. And we got stuck with Google because of the way that the HTML code was sort of hidden. Well, we figured out that you can do that with Bing, and we actually found an advantage in that Bing provides extra information on the search results. But we also then were able to go back and solve it on Google. So now we can do it both. We can scrape LinkedIn with Google and with Bing. What I'm going to show you today is the Bing one. As I solved this, and I was working on it, Glenn said, hey, you know what, Shally? Wouldn't it be a really good idea if we can ask the user to type in their search terms? And I thought, oh, that's easy to do. I'm going to show you how we do that, but that's what this is called here, display input dialog. So what I'm about to show you is wholly programmed by us on this machine, and it basically just starts by asking you a couple of questions, then it goes and does a search, and then it extracts the profiles, puts them into a spreadsheet, parses out the information, saves the spreadsheet, and then sends the spreadsheet to Seekout to be uploaded so that it can append the information that you need, like email address and phone number. And that's as far as we got. The last step, which we haven't done yet, is to save that output file. But for that, you have to wait until the matching has completed. When you upload it to Seekout, it takes sometimes a few minutes. So I have to figure out how to detect that it's completed by reading my email, because Seekout will send you an email. So that's the last step. I have to look for email that says confirmation, then click on the link and download it. That's the only step that's missing. From here on in, what I'm going to show you is completely automated. I'm going to click the run button, and then I'm going to type in the information that it's asking me. So I hit run, and the first thing it says, enter job title, no quotes. Okay, I want to enter, let's say, construction manager. Then it says, okay, give me a company name. All right, I'm going to use CH2M, which is a construction company. Doesn't exist anymore. They got bought, but that's okay. People still have that on their resume. Hit enter. And the last thing is enter the name of a target city. I can leave this blank and hit enter, or I can put in a city. I'll put in Chicago. Hit enter. Now it's going to take those three variables, go to Bing, and enter them in a search. This is all automated here. And what it's done in the background is it's now going through each one of those results, as you can see, cycling through. It reads the results, it writes them to Excel, it cycles through each row, and then it saves it as a spreadsheet. Now it's going to Seekout and going to my upload project and clicking on the upload to actually upload the file directly into Seekout. and it's finished. So now what I want to do is show you the outcome of all that. In the background, you didn't see this, but it created a file called upload, because I'm sending it to Seekout, where you have the name and the LinkedIn address of the profile, along with also a deconstructed portion of just the name, just the title, and just the company. This particular result only had 11 pages, so it stopped after 11 pages because it's a very small search. I did that on purpose to show you I didn't want this to go running forever. But when you construct this yourself, you can test out the different examples, and then you can determine how many pages you want to download. With Power Automate Desktop, you can set it to either grab X amount of pages or all available pages. Be careful if you do all available and there are 300 pages, this is going to take quite some time. But if there's 30, 40, 100 pages or so, it's only going to take seconds. The entire application ran while I was talking, and it looks like it doesn't show the time anymore, but it looks like it took probably just a few seconds. So I'll come back here and show you what all these steps are in just a second. But I want to show you, here's the Excel. It calls it upload, and it saves it to a predetermined folder, and then it uploads it to Seekout, and we're done. So now I'm just waiting for the email, which that part I haven't automated. The email that says your conversion or your upload has been completed. So up until there, it's working. All right. Here on the left-hand side, you see the actions. These are all those connectors. You can see there's tons of them. For this, I'm using the display box, which is a system action. And inside the system, it's asking for input. That's what this is. And you can program this to be whatever you want. I can even create a brand new one. I can even just copy this one. It's so easy. You can literally copy and paste. And now I have a fourth one. So here's job title, company, and name. I have a brand new one. It just created. I'm going to move it to the bottom. So it's going to say job title, company, location. And this one, I'm going to call it, let's say, something fun like maybe country. Okay. And then I can tell it what to ask for. Enter name, enter country name, no quotes. And then I want to have the variable be called country. Save. So next time I do this, it's going to ask me for the city and the country. And it's going to attach all of that into the search. The next step, after getting the input and saving the input as variables on the right-hand side, you can see over here, is to launch a browser window. Here is where the web automation comes in, and you decide which browser you want to use: Chrome, Edge, Firefox, etc. I might have to expand this a little bit so you can read it. There we go. Sorry, that makes this smaller, but it makes this more easy to read. So here we have the web automation, and you can see Launch Explorer, Firefox, Edge, or you can even do JavaScript. You can mouse over. You can close a browser. You can start a new tab on an existing browser, etc. For this one, I just launched a brand new browser, and I told it to go to a LinkedIn search. And here is the LinkedIn search. And you can see in the LinkedIn search, this part here is probably very familiar, because this is what happens when you go to Bing and do a site colon LinkedIn search. But what we learned, Glenn and I, is that you don't actually have to put the variables in line, because it will convert the variables into HTML. So we just put a space and then in title, which is the next command, and then the variable job title, and then in title and the variable company, in title location, and then finally the new one I just added, which will be country. And the rest, the spaces, it converts into the %20. So you don't even have to worry about HTML. Now that I've added country, I can save it. And the next time I run this, it's going to launch those 4 questions, open the browser, go to LinkedIn, put the variables in, hit search, and then it's going to begin extracting data from a web page. That's what this does. Let me show you how simple that is. Once the web page is open, let's try changing this to different. We'll add construction and CH2M, Chicago, and we'll do Canada. Instead of Chicago, we'll do, let's see, Toronto, Canada, to imitate the new search criteria, okay? So here we have the information that comes back. And here is why we decided to use Bing instead of Google. With Bing, it actually already tells you the criteria called occupation, title, etc., where Google doesn't do that. So this is actually kind of cool. It's not a lot of results, but that's okay. So now let me show you how to do the extraction. When you create the extraction, which you can get from the web data extraction here, right here, extract data from web page, drag it over here. Then you choose the browser instance, whichever browser you want to run, basically. And then you have a choice. Do you store the information as a variable or as a spreadsheet? I want it to be a spreadsheet so I can then upload it later. So I choose spreadsheet. And now, before I save this, so don't hit the save button, I'm going to go to the page that I want to extract. This is where the magic happens. So it's saying go to browser and do the following. I'm going to click on the page, and you can see the programmer comes up, and it says, okay, here's what we want to extract. You see the border that appears around the text. This means that it's detecting some sort of HTML code that it can automate. The first thing we want to do is grab the top line, which is the title of the page, right-click, extract element. The second thing is the URL or the LinkedIn profile. Then we want the location. Then we want the occupation. By the way, if you know regular expressions, you can take this and remove occupation, so it saves it without the occupation in there. Then we can do the works for, which is the essentially company name. And finally, the job title. We can even grab construction, which is the industry. Although not everybody has an industry, that's okay. Now look what happens. It creates these values over here. And now I need to do it one more time. But watch, as soon as I recognize one of these, it automatically detects the pattern and creates the same values for all of the other fields on the page. So you only have to do it once and then start another one, and it detects it. That's it. You've now scraped the information, so when it goes to the search, it knows exactly what to look for. Once again, why we chose Bing is because of all this extra detail that is not available in Google. I'm not going to save this because the exact same thing is already programmed for you. I just wanted to show you how it's done. So we have the 4 inputs, Chrome. Oops, too far. 4 inputs, Chrome, extract. Then it's going to look at the brand new Excel that it created, spreadsheet called Excel instance. It's going to look at it, and it's going to paste all of the information. And then it's going to come back and see which one is the first free row so that it can determine how many columns, more information it's going to paste in the columns. Now, Glenn has discovered a different way to do this that we haven't tested together yet, but it allows you to skip this step by simply parsing the information in the first step under the extraction. So it's one step more simple or one step fewer. For now, I'm just going to show you this one because you might need it for other things. Basically, it's going to look at Excel and find the last row and set that as a variable called first free row, which tells me how many times I'm going to loop, because the next part of the process is the loop. And the loop is going to do whatever I'm telling it to do as many times as there are rows in the spreadsheet. If there's 300 rows, it'll do this 300 times. It'll start with the first one and add to that column, second row, third row, fourth row, and so on until it gets to the end of that number, which is whatever count it had until the first rerow. And then it saves the file. Then it goes to a new Chrome and puts it into Seekout, which basically just launches a link, clips the location of the page of the spreadsheet on my computer, and sends that to the browser and hits enter. So that's it. Really, really easy to do. It looks complicated because there's lots of code, but I did not program any code here. I just chose variables and that's it. So Adrian said that this might look small on your screen, which means I probably am going to do some screenshots that are a little bit easier to read and put them into a document, and then I'll send that to Adrian so that he can upload it. Let me go ahead and close this and show you two other simpler examples that might be easier to practice and get started with doing. The first one is file names. So I have a folder where my recruiters put all of their resumes. The problem is that they're saving all of the resumes of people that they're presenting to the hiring manager in that folder, but I need to know the names of those people. And they're not always the same as the names on a CRM. And so I have to extract those names in order to compare them and make sure that they're being tracked. So it's kind of like data quality or audit. You can understand sometimes on a website, my name is Bobby Jones, but my resume is Jones, Robert, James, or whatever. And so in the resume file, it's a different name. Therefore, I need to be able to consolidate. So what starts all of this is there is a folder that has each of the recruiters for this particular project. And in those folders, they have all of the resumes. But imagine if I had to write down the name of every one of these candidates by hand or somehow extract it. There are at least 50, if not more. There's maybe 45 on this one. And on the other one, there's probably another close to 50. So it's almost 100 names. It would take me a really long time to do that manually. So instead, I created an automator that will go into the folder, and give me the name of all of the files and put that into a spreadsheet, which I can then parse and compare to my CRM. So it's very, very easy. All it's doing is, number one, get the files from a folder. So go to the folder and find the files. And it's doing that for these two folders. And then it's writing the name of that file, each one, into a text file. That's it, which I can then do something with. So I'm going to run it and show you what it does. That's it. It's done. And all I had to do is use the get files over here. So you can, if you ever want to find an action, you can just type it in here and you'll see it right there. Or you can just browse. I'll show you some of the other cool things in a minute. So it gets the files from one folder, it gets the files from the other, and then it stores those to these two variables, files 1, files 2, takes that and puts it into a document. Here's one other thing I can tell you. Instead of going into each folder, you can also just go to the parent folder. So instead of going in here and in here, you could just go here to the top folder and tell it to look at everything in all the subfolders. But the problem is, what if the subfolders don't just contain resumes? Maybe the subfolders also contain spreadsheets and phone screens and things like that. So that's why I chose just the resume folders. If you have all of those are just resume folders, then you don't have to do two separate folders. I just did that because of my particular situation. But we could just as easily stop here. Let me open that so I can show you. We can stop here, and this would index everything, including the subfolders. See? I didn't do that, but that's another possibility. Okay, So it grabs that and puts it into a text file. So where's the text file? Well, the text file is right here in that drive right there. So all I have to do is go to my client's drive and go into that one. And there it is. Bloop. All of the names of all of the resumes. Now, this is the file path, right? But the next step, which I haven't done yet, is to open an Excel and have Automate parse the information out. Because it's the same pattern, all I would have to do is create one rule that removes everything that is the file path, like that. Or you can also do it manually. And then I would have another rule that would separate the name from the folder. So it would basically do similar to a text to columns. You can do the same thing with Automate. And I'm going to tell it that the divider is the backslash character. Again, this is another thing you can manipulate inside of Power Automate Desktop. And now I have the recruiter, and then I have the name of the file. Now, the one last thing is that you'll notice that one recruiter uses name title and another recruiter uses company location name. That's okay. I can create a rule that will look for the name in the right place for each of these and extract the information. But this is a very simple application for just something that would take me a long time to do manually. And the third example I want to show you is an actual live scrape of a protected website. So the first example was a Google search, or sorry, a LinkedIn search. It can also be done as a Google search. But this is an example of when there's a directory that you can enter because you have a password. So you have a membership with that, whatever it is, database or etc. And this one also very simple. All it does is it launches a Chrome. That's it. And then it extracts the data from that Chrome. This is because I was lazy and I didn't create the launch a Chrome, put in the password, hit enter and all that, because I'm going to just go ahead and log into it. Sorry. I had to zoom out here for you guys, so it's very, 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 very small. So, okay, so I'm actually logged in here. So I don't really need to create the login because it's already kind of, pre-configured and my cookies are enabled. So I'm just going to do a quick search for, let's say, manager. Probably too many results. Okay, I'm going to go back and search again. Let me choose a particular country. Let's see. We'll try Norway. I don't even know if it's going to find any, but let's try it and see. Nope. Okay. How about let's try Canada? Okay, 100 results. Great. I'm going to make this bigger just so you can see. So the default view is to show the cards. It's like a quick view. If you click on it, you can see the full profile. But that's okay. What I actually want is the list, so that it's going to go through these. Either way, it doesn't matter. You can have this scrape the list, and then you can have it go in and get the details. Or like me, I just went straight in to get the details. Because there's 106 results, and all of them have a pagination, I'll show you what that is. I can basically just start with the first one and hit next page, next page, next page, next page. So here is the automation. Launch Chrome, in this case, is not going to create a new Chrome. It's only going to attach to a running instance. That's the difference. So this one is brand new browser. This one is add to a browser. Then I'm going to choose the foreground window, which means the window that is currently active, the window that I have selected to be active. You can also choose a window based on the title, and it'll look for the titles that are currently there, and you can say, oh, that's this one. Or you can choose a window by an address and give it the actual address. But again, I'm lazy, I'm already logged in, and I know exactly what I want, so I'm just going to use the foreground window. So that's the first thing that it does. And then the second thing is it extracts the data. And this I already showed you. But I'm going to show you how the pagination works. So the first thing that I want to tell you, though, is there were 106 results here. So I'm going to change this to 106. The reason for this is I don't want it to keep going forever. Now, the other option is I could also choose all available, and it will keep going as long as there are any pages. But for our example today, I don't want to choose all of them, so I'm going to do just 10, right? Because it'll be really quick to do 10, and I can show you an example of how it works without having to sit here and wait. It does about 2 per second, so 5 seconds if we do 10, maybe 6 seconds. But if we did all 100, it's going to be a couple of minutes. So it's better just to do a few. Now I'm going to activate the inspector back over here again. And you can see I've already pre-programmed the information that I want because it's already laid out here. So I chose the name, then their job title, then their company, address, city, country, postal code, email, telephone number, their certifications. And I didn't choose degree, but I can just as easily add that. I can also add industry, so I can right-click, extract element, and I can right-click, extract element, and so on, right? I don't have to be picky. I can grab whatever I want. Now, here's the other thing I wanted to show you. When you activate the inspector, in order for it to go to the next page, you have to actually tell it which one the next page is. So I'm going to open this up again. Move this out of the way, and then I'm going to right-click on the next button over here. When I right-click, it brings up the extract element value from before, but what we want is we want to set element as pager. That tells the machine that this button or this link is not something that you want to parse, it's something that you want to click when it's finished parsing. So parse the information, click on this, parse the information, click on this, continue doing that 10 times or as many times as needed until it's finished. I'm going to reset that back to 10, hit save, and I'm now going to run the program for you live so you can see what it's doing. So I'm going to run it and switch over here. You'll see it's going to start. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. It's going to start clicking on that page, next page, behind the scenes. I'm not doing this, by the way. This is the robot. Each time goes to a page, scrapes it, another page, scrapes it. It should only do it another couple of times. And then it'll create a spreadsheet and open the spreadsheet. And I can go in and grab the information. There it is. I want to expand the columns here so you can see them. There we go. Name, title, company, address, city, state, country, email, phone, and then finally their licensure. Now, what I did not do, which you can add to this, is you can actually create the first row. So you can tell it when it starts the spreadsheet, you can tell it to put the title of the rows here, like name, company, etc. That's another feature that you can add to that. I didn't do that because what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to grab it and put it right into my CRM. I'm not really going to save the spreadsheet, but if you were going to save it, you can probably just have it do the column names. Or you can have it append to an existing spreadsheet. Let's say you wanted to do Canada, and then you go to do, the Netherlands. Then you go to do South Africa, and so on, right? You can just keep adding. So that's another thing that you can do. All of this can be completely automated. So now that I've shown you a few good examples, I want to show you on the left-hand side here what some of these other features or actions are. You can configure variables, all kinds of variables. You can create lists, sort them, generate random numbers. You can convert JSON files. You can set variables and increase them. You can count forwards, count backwards. You can retrieve a data table into a list. all kinds of variables. There's conditionals, which are basically subroutines. So if you think of Zapier and Integromat and if this then that, these are the ifs and the that's, and there's a few other things. So in programming, basically everything depends on some sort of trigger and some sort of action. The trigger is, let's say, if this file exists, then do this. If not, then do that. Or if this file is called A, do this. If it's called B, do that. If it's called something else, give it a name or whatever. That's basic programming, right? You can also create switches, which is where it gets to something and it reads, let's say, read the cell. If it's this, then go down that routine. If it's this, go down that routine. So those are all conditionals. Loops, I showed you already, are pretty basic. Just do this over and over again, X amount of times. You can say, for each time, increase by 1. You can say, check for a condition and keep doing this. So wait for input, wait for input, wait for input. When it gets input, then run the file. That's how you do a continuously running, a continuously running automation. It's going to be waiting for input, and when it gets it, then it starts. There's also the waiting here. You can say wait for a process, a file, a time, a date, a number of seconds. Basic waiting is just seconds. So if you wanted a full day, it would be 84,400, I think, seconds. If you wanted an hour, it would be 60, and so on. There's other types of waiting as well. It can wait for a particular process to start running, and so on. System has to do with your machine on your computer. Everything from running network to PowerShell, JavaScript, Python, applications, VB. You can even manipulate things in the Active Directory, add a user, remove a user, lock out a user, those kinds of things. File structure, so copy, move, delete, read, write, and it also includes CSV because Excel is a different system. So file for CSV is here. If it's Excel, obviously it goes under the Excel tab there. Folder, different than file. That's how we did the get the files from a folder. You can also get the subfolders. You can also create a folder. You can move a folder. You can rename a folder. One of my favorites is renaming files. So I can take all of the files in a folder and rename them based on, for example, the date or the folder that they're in, etc. So lots of renaming things you can do there. Compression. UI automation is your window. So this is where you can say, okay, record my screen or collapse something or expand something or select something. There's also data extraction from your window. So you can extract data from your window and you can fill out forms on your machine. These are not web forms. These are computer-based forms that are inside of your machine. So those are all the UIs. Similarly, for the web, you can download or start a web service, or you can automate, which we talked about. Create tabs, fill out forms. This is the one that you would use. So you would say, okay, extract all of my contacts from the CRM, store them into variables, and then populate those into my ATS and save them or whatever. That's all web automation. Excel. Databases are your SQL connections, basically. Anything that has a SQL-based, you can open with this. That includes AWS, Azure, anything that has a database. Email has to do with your Office 365, or actually it doesn't even have to be, whatever is on your email program. So if you're using an email program on your machine that is your standard email, and it is not Outlook, but it is on your computer, you can actually still invoke that from here. Exchange would actually be the Exchange server, and there's Outlook. So you can do Exchange, Outlook, or any email. Message boxes like pop-ups, for example, or asking questions, like I said here, select for input. Mouse and keyboard, you can send any combination of keys to the machine, any combination of mouse clicks. You can detect information from your keyboard. You can put things in your clipboard. You can manipulate text, like trim it, parse it, convert it, join it, split it, parse it, replace it, all that. Date and time. PDF, so you can extract or convert or merge PDFs. These are command session prompts. So like when you go into your Windows and type in CMD, sorry, the command prompt, that's what these are here. Anything you can do with a, excuse me, with a Linux. This used to be DOS, now it's actually Linux. So whatever you can do here. Terminal emulation, you can emulate any kind of terminal. Optical character recognition if you have images. So it's using Tesseract, Modi, or optical character recognition. These are very powerful. It can detect patterns within images. It can extract, all kinds of text from images that you would think are very difficult to extract. I've had to use that once because there was a conference and everybody dropped off paper resumes. Believe it or not, don't ask me why. This was about a year and a half ago, a little bit before COVID. And all the paper resumes got scanned into pictures, but they didn't get scanned into text. So they were all basically TIFF files. And my recruiters wanted me to put them into the CRM. So I had to use OCR. You can use cryptography to secure files. You can invoke services, XML, Azure, AWS, basically. Cognitive, flow control, which is flows inside of your routines, basically, and FTP, uploading files, downloading files, etc. Last one I want to show you here is the cognitive, because this is just a lot of fun. Here you can see they have Google, IBM, and Microsoft. Each of these have a specialization. Google,
Shally,
for example, yeah.
Shally, sorry to interrupt. I'm also conscious about time. We have a couple of questions in the chat. Yep. We have 7 minutes left. Do you first want to show this one, or do you want to answer some questions?
Just maybe 30 seconds and I'm done.
Go.
Good thing. Yeah. So I was just going to say each of these have their own specializations. Google is really good at sentiment analysis. IBM is really good at document conversion and also translation. And they, unlike Google, they do something called tone analysis. So there's a difference between those two. Sentiment versus tone, happy, sad, angry, etc. And then Microsoft is particularly good at spelling and particularly good at language detection. So if you want sentiment, you use Google. If you want tone, you can use IBM. If you want key phrases or language detection, you want Microsoft. And all of these services are built in. So there's a lot of power here. And you could probably spend weeks, days, weeks, months, years learning all this. If you have any questions, give me a call back. Give me a call or reach out to me. I know, Adrian, you said you had some, so let's go ahead and close this out and take questions.
Yeah, amazing, Shally. So first question, here we go. How long did it take you to learn how to use this automation?
Well, I started a long time ago with Excel spreadsheets, like a lot of people, and just formulas, right? So I knew how to use formulas. That's a part of it. Formulas is not programming, but it's like baby programming. And then from there, some people, may learn macros. You can do macros in Excel, in Word, etc. So that was another step. And then after that, a little bit of VB, Visual Basic, but I hated VB. It's too, I don't know. I didn't like the way that it looked and felt, so I skipped that. Then my next evolution was Google. I actually started using Google Sheets and Google Automation through some of their basically Google Script, which is like VB, but a lot easier. So I was more comfortable with that. And then when Microsoft Automate came out and it was all drag and drop, it was web-based. If you have Office 365, Microsoft 365, it would be called flow.microsoft.com. And this is the web-based version. And you can create all kinds of automation here as well. So this was the next step. I learned how to do forms and other connectors here. And then when the desktop came up, I just started trial and error. I mean, literally experimenting. Try this, didn't work, try that. Glenn and I have a recording of 4 sessions, about 30 minutes each, where we unsuccessfully tried to automate the Google search. and shows you all the failures that we went to until we finally got it. So, you know, it took us about 2 hours to try different things until we figured it out. That one particular thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So just go for it. That's basically what you're saying. Shally, is there a way that you can share scenarios with other users?
Yes, in your environment. So, hey, where did my environment go? Okay.
Share your screen.
Well, when you open Power Automate Desktop, not the one that had all the code, but when you open the actual app here, I'll show you. This app is your environment where the different flows are. So these are the flows that I showed you, but inside here, this exists in an environment. If you're a member of a company, for example, and everybody has a Microsoft 365, you can share applications in your environment. If you have your own, I believe you can actually share by exporting it. You can definitely share flows on the cloud version by downloading the script. So I know if you can do that from here, you should be able to also download the script from desktop. The easiest way, though, is if you're in the same environment here, my company environment, then everybody can see it. So here you can see my flows. There are the flows that I created, and there are the flows that were shared with me. This is one I actually created, but I'm sharing with everybody else. So this is the easiest way. But if you don't have a company, it's just you can basically download the script or copy the script, which is all the commands behind the scenes. What this is doing is Microsoft calls it no-code programming, but what it's actually doing is it's converting your input into code. So behind the scenes, there's a layer that actually has all of the code. Even though it's no code to you, it's still code behind the scenes, which means you can definitely copy that code and put it somewhere.
Great, awesome. Hey, is it possible to run multiple flows at the same time?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
You can have flows that are triggered based on a time. So you can say, wait an hour and do this every hour. You can have a flow that triggers based on input or a system process. So you can say, look at the system clock. And when the system clock says 12:59 p.m., run the process. And if there's another process running, it's going to run both. It's not linear in that way.
Okay. How do you, if you use this for LinkedIn, how do you avoid triggering or getting banned from LinkedIn if you use some of this stuff?
Well, the example was on Bing.
Yeah.
So it's getting data from Bing that has nothing to do with LinkedIn. They're LinkedIn profiles, but it's not going to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
If you're logged into your LinkedIn account and you're automating that, my advice would be that automate the things that you normally would do. Okay, so if you're right-clicking, downloading, or clicking and pasting or whatever, you can automate all that. Just make sure that the automation goes slowly. When you saw me do the automation, there was a little thing that said wait 3 seconds. That's the reason I did that is because sometimes I want to give the browser time to refresh, right? When I click on the browser, it doesn't always pop up instantly. Sometimes it takes 1 or 2 seconds. So you can put those kinds of delays in there, or you can also have inside of the flow, it says wait for page to load. It's going to wait for the page to load. So it's not going to go so fast that you're detected as a robot. What they don't want is they don't want people using robots in a way that overloads the system or grabs information that you're not allowed to grab. But if you're doing something that you normally would do, like click and send message, you're doing the same thing you do, you're just doing it with an assistant. It's still you, right? So just go slow. Don't try to get too smart and try to do 100 a minute or something like that. It might work, but that's how they detect you. Again, you're not doing anything wrong as long as you're doing what you normally do.
Yeah. Good point. Last question, and this is a technical question from Jay. If the email shows up as a pop-up menu near the start screen, how would you use it to capture?
If what shows up as a pop-up?
Email.
Oh, you can have a system triggered based on pop-ups messages. So one of the triggers is system messages. So because it's a pop-up, it's a system message. Now, is it a pop-up on your taskbar or a pop-up on your web page? If it's a web page pop-up, then you would use web automation.
Okay.
That it can detect that as well.
Okay, awesome. Shally, wow, so much value, so much interesting content in that sense. The chat was blowing up the minute you showed the automation and how it turned out. And I think nobody was disappointed that showed up today to listen what you had to share. And I think many people will rewatch the recording to see how they can automate it. Shally, if people have questions or would like to work with you whatsoever, like what's the best way to reach out to you?
So I just put a URL on the chat, srcn.co/me. That is a domain that I own, srcn.co, so it'll always redirect to my bio. If you go to srcn.co/me, you'll land on my card that has links to my LinkedIn, my Facebook, Messenger, Twitter, everything. So it doesn't matter how you like to connect. If you like Facebook, if you like Twitter, if you like LinkedIn, you can find me on there. All of the links are right there. You can email me, you can call me. I'm not hiding.
Perfect. No, thank God you're not. Thank God you're not. Shally, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it.
I know how to hide if I need to, though.
Yeah. I'm wrapping up. We're gonna send the recording soon to you guys so you can rewatch and try it. Connect with Shally. If anyone is interested to join Matcher as a source or as a recruiter, send me a message. We're growing and we're constantly hiring. Super happy to see so much interaction. Guys, thank you so much, and we'll see each other next week.
Thank you.